Hey everyone, it's Gilz with your post-game walk and talk. No, I am not Tim Fitzgerald. I am Ryan Gilbert. I'll be filling in here for Fitz on some of these walk and talks as he's left me in charge here in Norman. I don't know why he did, but he did, so let's have some fun with this. Kansas State drops this one against the Sooners 79-65, and this is now back-to-back losses on the road for Kansas State. Both have been frustrating, maybe a little concerning for Kansas State, as this one was in their grasp at halftime. This game was deadlocked at 36 at the break, and after that it was all Sooners. And give Oklahoma credit, but these losses are starting to frustrate a lot of fans out there, and I understand why. You know, Texas Tech, that road game was a tough place to play. It's not easy to win on the road in the Big 12. Nobody's going to fault you for losing away from Braillich Coliseum, right? But that was a game that Kansas State had in its grasp. And then this game here against Oklahoma, a game that Kansas State had in its grasp as well, right? And this is not a tough place to play. This had maybe 3,000-4,000 people tops. It was very empty. The crowd did not make any sort of difference tonight for the Sooners. And an early start kind of set the tone for the Wildcats. And Wildcats went down 9-2. Jerome Tang did call a timeout and, kind of righted the ship for a little bit. I don't know what he said to his team, but it resonated for a little while as Kansas State, like I said, got the game tied up at half. But in the second half, it was all Sooners. And, on the first possession, Kansas State turned it over, and that was kind of the way that the night would end up for the Wildcats. And Tang, post-game, didn't seem too pissed off, to quote him at times this season. I think he wanted his team to kind of sit with this loss. It took them a while to get going with the media session, and Tang mentioned how they just kind of sat there for a little bit and wanted to soak this one in and let that loss kind of resonate with them. And Tang's been angry this season at times. Tonight wasn't that night, but he mentioned that it doesn't matter what bracketology says. It doesn't matter what your draft board, your mock draft is at, right? You got to win these games. You've got to continue to play hard. And I think K-State's gotten a little complacent. Jerome Tang would probably agree with that as well. And first half, like I mentioned, was good. Naquan Tomlin played well. I think he had 13 of his 17 points in that first half, and so Kansas State did set the tone. Bebe played really good in that first half. The Sooners did kind of figure out how to stop Bebe and Naquan in the second half, but first half was good. Kansas State did, compete. I have to give credit where it's due, but second half was not good for the Wildcats. 14 turnovers in the game. That's not a terrible number. I think a lot of coaches in the Big 12 would live with that number, but with the issues that Kansas State's been having all season long, I think you got to start to cut back on those and try to make it maybe 10 turnovers a game as your goal if you're Kansas State. And I gave credit for Kansas State, the way it played in the first half. We got to give OU a shout out. The way that Porter Moser's squad played in the second half, they connected, or the way they played the entire game, excuse me. They connected on 11 three-pointers tonight. That's a season high for the Sooners. Believe it or not, they didn't hit that many against Alabama and that throttling they had in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, but it was kind of a good win for the Sooners, who have had a very frustrating season, and this was kind of their night to, beat up on Kansas State, so to speak. Now, I think that, was OU feeling good tonight? Sure, but Jerome Tang was not pleased with his defense in the postgame. That was, a big reason why OU was having success shooting the ball, was because of Kansas State's lack of, pressure on those three-point shots. But like I mentioned, the turnovers went down. That's encouraging, but you still got to win these games. Kansas State was unable to do that here tonight. Big 12 title race is pretty much gone, but Kansas State's still very much alive in the NCAA tournament race, but you got to start winning some of these games. Tang mentioned it back there. Kansas State's not in right now. I don't care what bracketology says, they're not in. And to quote Tang, he said K-State has to win 2 more games to really get in the big dance, right? Keontae Johnson right now, doesn't matter what his draft board says, he's got to continue to play hard. And I think that Johnson, maybe after playing a few years off of basketball, is maybe hitting a wall. Just the grind of playing in the Big 12 night in and night out is absolutely tough. But also Johnson, I think, needs to find that second gear and continue to lock in. This is not the SEC. The Big 12 is tough, and you've got to bring it night in and night out. Tang has mentioned in the past that he's not married to a starting lineup. So, Tang is kind of, dropped some hints to us that, yeah, you got to continue to buy in if you want to continue to see the floor. Kansas State's going to get better this season. You know, I think we're starting to see this team come back down to earth a little bit. But the question moving forward is can this be corrected? I think K-State's going to win at least a few more games, but if K-State plays the way it's played the last couple games, that's going to be hard. But moving forward, K-State's got a perfect opportunity to bounce back against the Cyclones on Saturday. That'll wrap it up here for my Walk and Talk Fits. I hope I did okay, but appreciate you guys tuning in.